So far in this course, we have learned about various classes of automata. Finite state automata, both deterministic and non-deterministic, recognizes the family of regular languages, and after that we learned about push-down automata, recognizing context-free languages, and we saw that deterministic and non-deterministic push-down automata are having different powers for accepting languages. And after push-down automata, we learned about linear bounded automata, recognizing the family of context-sensitive languages. And finally, we learned about Turing machines as language acceptors. And the family of languages accepted is called recursively enumerable. And if you recall how we defined the new class of automata, we can see that we have introduced some structural component into an existing class of automata to obtain a more powerful class of automata. For example, when we added a stack as an intermediate storage to a finite state automata, what we obtained is called push-down automata, which is more powerful. And later we identified that there are certain languages not recognizable with a push-down automata. And then we looked at the next powerful class of automata, which is a linear bounded automata, where instead of a stack, we use the tape as a rewritable tape, where you can use a number of cells which is bounded by linear function of the size of the input. So that is linear bounded automata. And we saw that even linear bounded automata cannot recognize all formal languages. So we need more powerful automata. And we looked at Turing machines, which is more powerful than linear bounded automata. And the only difference in Turing machine is that the tape is unbounded to the right. So there is a left hand marker marking the left end of the tape, but the right end is not bounded. You can utilize infinitely many cells. And we can see that even there are languages which cannot be recognized by a Turing machine. In fact, you cannot have any automata recognizing all the languages. And the topic for today is different variants of Turing machines. So we can see that there are languages which are not recognizable even by a Turing machine. Now the question is, can we add more power? Can we get an automata, class of automata, which is more powerful than Turing machine? The answer is no, you cannot. The Turing machine, the standard Turing machine is what we defined with a semi-infinite tape, and that is the most powerful class of automata or most powerful machine. If you think of any other machine like a digital computer or anything, you can see that its power is equivalent to a standard Turing machine. So today we are going to look at variants of Turing machines. That is, the aim is look at an extension of Turing machine by adding more structural component to it and see whether it is giving us more power either in accepting languages or in computing the function, some functions which is not possible with a standard Turing machine. So we will see three different variants of Turing machines in this lecture. First, we can see a multi-tape Turing machine, that is a Turing machine with multiple tapes in it. For example, consider a Turing machine with three tapes. So, when compared to the standard Turing machine, here we are having two extra structural components, and they are tape 2 and tape 3. And if you recall, the standard Turing machine contains only a single tape, but here there are three tapes, and that is the difference, the structural difference. Now, what can be a transition in this? Because there are three tapes, the transition must depend on the current symbols stored on all the three tapes 1, 2 and 3. Because there are three tapes, there are three read-write head also. Each tape is having an associated read-write head. So, three read-write heads are there. Now, the symbol on the tape 1 is small a, symbol on the tape 2 is small b, because it's pointing to this cell, and the current symbol on the third tape is small c, because it is pointing to this cell. Again, sorry for this typo, this should be small c. So, please read it as small c. So, that's the machine, and if you apply this transition, what is it telling? If you are in state P, and if you have small a on the first tape as the current symbol, small b as the current symbol in the second tape, and small c as the current symbol in the third tape, this should be c, then what do? You change your state to Q, replace the small a with alpha, then replace small b in the second tape with beta, and replace small c in the third tape with gamma, assuming that this is C. And then what do? In the first tape, you move your read-write head to the left. Second tape again it is to the left, and in the third tape, you move your read-write head to the right. And if you apply this transition, this is what you are getting. You replace the simple small a here with alpha, and you move left. And here you replace this small b with beta, that is beta is getting into this cell, and you move to the left. And finally, in the third tape, you are asked to replace it with gamma and to move right. So, you replace the first symbol with gamma and you move right. So, that is a transition in a 3-tape Turing machine, and we can naturally extend it for an n-tape Turing machine, a Turing machine with n tapes. So, the machine is having a finite state control unit, same as that of the standard Turing machine, but there could be multiple tapes. For example, here you have 3 tapes, and each tape is having its own read-write head. And what is a step in computation like this? In the current state P, read the symbols under the tape heads, 3 tape heads, say A, B and C, and change state to Q. This should be Q, sorry for the typo. Replace the current symbol with alpha, beta and gamma respectively, and move tape heads to the left and to the right respectively. So, this is exactly what we did here, and note that in this slide there are 2 typos. This should be small q and this should be small c. Sorry for the typing mistake. I shall change it and forward the slides to all of you. So, that is a multi-tape Turing machine, and it looks like it's structurally more powerful than the standard Turing machine with only 1 tape, but you can see that the Turing machines and multi multi-tape Turing machines are equivalent in power. So whatever the multi-tape Turing machine can do, there could be 3 tapes or 2 tapes or n number of tapes, but that can also be done by a standard Turing machine with a single tape. So there is a proof, but for the interest of time, we are not looking at the proof. So take it from me, this is the correct statement. Turing machines and multi-tape Turing machines are equivalent in power. So that is the first variant of Turing machine that we discussed. Now we are going to see another variant, which is a non-deterministic Turing machine. We can try to understand what it is using an example. Now suppose you have this configuration of the machine where you are in the state T and the current input symbol is small c, and the transitions are not uniquely defined. You are saying there are 2 possible moves from here. What you can do? You can do either this or the second one. What is the first one says? You change your state to Q, you replace small c with a small gamma, and you move to the left. That is what the first transition is telling. And what the second transition is telling? If you are in the state T and you are reading small c, you change your state to R, you replace small c with a capital gamma, and you move to the right. So there are 2 possible transitions. So the next configuration can be this or this. So this is obtained by applying the first transition, or you can decide to apply the second transition, then you are getting this. And thus the move is not uniquely defined. And this type of a Turing machine where multiple transitions are defined from any reachable configuration is called a non-deterministic Turing machine. That if you come to a particular configuration, the next configuration is not uniquely defined. Then you can see that the computation of a deterministic Turing machine on a given input can be modeled as a path, because if you start with the initial configuration, there is a unique next state and you progress like that. At every configuration, you have a unique next state, and hence the computation is going to be a path. But in a non-deterministic Turing machine, on a given input needs to be modeled as a tree. For example, suppose you come to this state, then the next state is not uniquely defined. Next state can be either this configuration or this configuration. It's like a binary tree knot where you can either move to the left or right. Depending on the number of transitions that you can apply on the current configuration, there could be a number of next states possible, and the machine is assumed to have the non-deterministic power to decide which you want to select as the next configuration. So the computation needs to be modeled as a tree as opposed to a path in the case of a deterministic machine. And here again there is a typing mistake. This should be non-deterministic. I will correct it. So that is a non-deterministic Turing machine. Now you may just look at the definition. Please don't get worried about this. I will tell you what is the difference when compared to a standard Turing machine. And this is the only difference. The transition function definition is different. In what way? The next state can be, or the next configuration can be a number of transitions defined by a number of transitions. That is, you can have a subset of transitions of this kind. You can, in each case, you can say what is the next state, what tape symbol is going to replace the current symbol, and what is the direction of move. For example, here there are 2, but in general there can be a finite number of transitions possible. So that is the only difference. And if you want, you may go back and see the definition of standard Turing machine, and you can verify that this is the only difference to get a non-deterministic Turing machine. And the definition of the transition function is very similar to what we did for non-deterministic finite state automata. And here again, you can see that standard Turing machines and non-deterministic Turing machines are equivalent in power, like the case of finite state automata. Deterministic and non-deterministic machines are of the same power for accepting languages. And with this, we are moving to the third variant of Turing machine, which is what is called an enumeration machine. So, what is an enumeration machine? Let me try to explain it using an example structure. So, the enumeration machine is going to have two tapes, and not exactly two working tapes. One is a read-write tape. So, the first one is rewritable working tape whose alphabet set is gamma. This is exactly the first component of a standard Turing machine. But the second is not fully a rewritable tape, but it is a write-only tape with alphabet set sigma. And not that sigma is the input alphabet and gamma is a superset of sigma, which is the tape alphabet. So, in addition to the tape that you have in a standard Turing machine, you are adding one more component. And what is it? It is what is called an output tape. Though it is an output tape, what you are going to write as impulse is input impulse. Later you can see why. So, this is the structure of an enumeration machine. It is a standard machine with one more structural component, and what is it? It is the output tape where you can only write, you cannot read. An enumeration machine, capital E, is not having the single state T and R. If you remember, T is the unique accept state for the standard Turing machine and R is the unique reject state for the standard Turing machine. But in the case of an enumeration machine, these states are not there. But it is having another special state, namely the enumeration state ES. So, it is not having T and R, but instead of T and R, it is having another state, namely the enumeration state ES. And it is having a rewritable working tape and a write-only output tape. And the output tape is known as the enumeration tape. And that is the structural component in an enumeration machine. So, when compared to a standard Turing machine, the differences are the single states T and R are replaced with a single enumeration state. There is an additional component which is an output tape, also known as enumeration tape, and these are the differences. And the enumeration machine starts with the empty strings on both the tapes. You can see that here every cell is holding a blank symbol. So, an enumeration machine is assumed to start in a configuration where the state is the start state and both the tapes are containing blank symbols only. So, the strings are empty strings. And during its computation, it can read and write symbols on the working tape. So, on this tape, it can read and write symbols. Then you may wonder why it can read, because the input initially it is null string. It can then read the blank symbol. That is possible, right? Then maybe you can decide replace this blank symbol with the small a, that you can say. And so you move all the way to the right to some point and replace this blank with some symbol. Then you move back and replace again, etc. you can do. And that's what it says. It can read and write symbols on the working tape, and it can write symbols in the input alphabet on the output tape. And not that you cannot read from this tape, but you can write. And what you are going to write is simple from the input output set. And remember, the enumeration machine is going to start its processing in a configuration where both the tapes are empty. So you are not going to give it any input string. It will start from empty tape. Now, during its computation, it may enter the enumeration state, and when the machine enters the state ES, which is the enumeration state, and at that moment, whatever is written on this tape other than blank simple is considered as enumerated. And suppose when it gets into ES, the content is 010, then you can consider that 010 is listed as the first or as the next element in the output that this machine is generating, and that is an enumeration machine. So if you recall what it is, it's a machine just like the standard Turing machine with an additional structural component, which is a write-only output tape, also known as enumeration tape. And T and R states are not there, but here we have another state which is called an enumeration state. This is not a sync state. If you are getting into enumeration state, you can come out of enumeration state. And what can it do? It starts its processing in a configuration where both the tapes are empty, and during the computation it can read and write simple on the first tape, which is the working tape, and it can write simples which are input simples onto the output tape. And during the computation, if the machine gets into the enumeration state, then the content at that time on the output tape is considered to be listed or enumerated. And now the language of the enumeration machine is the set of all strings enumerated by the machine E. The language may or may not be empty. If it is never getting into the ES state, then the language is empty. And if it is getting into ES finitely many times, the language is going to be finite. And if the machine is getting into ES infinitely often, then the language is going to be an infinite language. So this is what is called an enumeration machine. And now maybe you can recall the name of the family of languages recognizable by the class of Turing machine, which is recursively enumerable languages. It's because you can have a Turing machine which can take an arbitrary Turing machine as output and can generate and can enumerate the strings of the language represented by the arbitrary Turing machine given as input to the enumeration machine. That is, you can have an enumeration machine E which will take another Turing machine T as input and can enumerate the strings in the language of the Turing machine T. And that is why the class of languages recognized by the family of Turing machines is called recursively enumerable languages. And why recursively enumerable? Is because the procedure that enumeration machine is going to apply is a recursive procedure. And with this, we are finishing this lecture, and here again you can prove that Turing machines and enumeration machines are equivalent in power. In this class, we looked at some variants of standard Turing machines. We discussed about multi-tape Turing machine, non-deterministic Turing machine, and enumeration machine. In each case, we added some structural components to the standard Turing machine, and we can prove that none of these machines are more powerful than standard Turing machine. And it looks like whatever you do, what component you are going to add, you are not going to get a more powerful machine, and accordingly, Church and Turing proposed a thesis, namely Church-Turing thesis, which says a Turing machine or the family of Turing machines is as powerful as any other machine for computation. So, if you have a machine, maybe a digital computer or mechanical device or whatever, you can have a Turing machine having the same power as that of the other machine, and that is this Church-Turing thesis. So, with this, we are finishing this lecture. Thank you.